Just a little bit about me. Firstly, you realise I don't like talking about myself for too much, but I think you need to have some background and context. So I'm Altaf Hussain, Principal Chief Executive of Luton Sixth Form College, one of the biggest sixth form colleges in the country. Not a lot of people know that. We're the fifth largest sixth form college around. We're the first and the oldest sixth form college as well, established over 55 years ago, and we're very proud of the kind of role that we play in our community. So over my 17 years that I've been at the college, thousands of young people have actually walked through our doors. We're very proud to actually be kind of supporting young people to go on to university. That's where probably about 85% of our young people go, but also they go on to employment and apprenticeships. And folks, if you walk around Luton and if you see engineers and artists and doctors, there's a very, very good chance that they walk through our doors, and there's a very good chance that their parents probably have walked through our doors as well. So we're very proud of our history that we have for Luton, and we do see ourselves as a college for the Luton community. I think Amy asked me to actually just talk about my experiences. So I've been at the college for 17 years, I've been in education for about 25 years. Before that, I did a degree. It was a broad degree. It was technology management, so it was things like economics and maths and manufacturing. It was called a hybrid degree. And then after that, I went into working for McDonald's. So I was a trainee manager. I don't even know if Sufian knows this now, so don't take the mickey, but I worked as a trainee manager for McDonald's for about 2 years. I'll be honest, folks, I didn't quite cut it. I think it's brilliant, the management program they've got from McDonald's. They call it the total quality management approach, and they leave nothing to chance at McDonald's. That's why I think it's such a brand leader. But if I'm honest, I just didn't quite have the kind of McDonald's mindset. There was no way I was going to be rushing for a fillet of fish or a McDonald's, even when it was busy. I had one pace, and that was one pace only. And I used to get told off that I wasn't hustling enough when it was lunchtime and I wasn't moving quickly enough. So it was a great experience, wasn't for me. Then I went into working as a regional manager for a petroleum company. I had my own business for a little bit, and then finally decided I wanted to do a career change and go into careers education and guidance. Did a postgraduate qualification. I think for some reason decided to do that in my first year of getting married. So my wife wasn't overly happy, and we had to kind of start all over again. And then here I am, I think 25 years later, working at a college, very proud to be principal at a college, and really happy to be here. And generally, I'm humbled I've been asked to come and speak to you, because all I can do is actually share with you my experiences. I generally I'm ambitious for the success of our community. For those of you who are sad enough to follow me on social media, one of the first things I said 3 years ago when I was appointed principal was, I genuinely believe the future Prime Minister of this country will come from Luton Sixth Form College or from Luton. I genuinely believe that, and one of you might be watching and listening, and it could be you. I don't see why that isn't an option. It's only impossible until it's done. So I'm going to shut up there. I think that's enough about me. I think, Sufian, it's over to you now, I think.
Thank you, Altaf. Hopefully everyone can hear me. My name is Sufian Sadiq. I'm Director of Teaching School at Chiltern Learning Trust. Some of you will be familiar with what Chiltern Learning Trust do, but just a quick snapshot. We have 15 going on to 16 schools within our trust. Many of the high schools in and around Luton you will recognise. So the Chorney High School for boys, Chorney High School for girls, Denby, Partridge, Chiltern Academy are some of the schools within our trust. So there's a good chance that before young people go on to Luton Sixth Form College, they would have been in one of our schools, and that's where they would have started their journey. We're also a teaching school. Often teaching schools are not something that's very broadly appreciated or understood. We see teachers, and we know we need teachers to make great schools and colleges. What we don't see is where a teacher's made. So when a teacher leaves university, where is that training taking place? And then once they've trained as a teacher, what's that ongoing training that happens for them? So at the teaching school, we've been around for 27 years now. at Chiltern Training Group. So we've trained teachers in every single school in Luton. We have a teacher that has been trained by us, which is a huge achievement in and of itself. We've trained thousands of teachers through us, and we've provided ongoing training for teachers now. At the moment, as a teaching school hub, we're responsible for teacher training and development. And that's understanding when a teacher starts their career all the way to when they are in Altaf level as a CEO, principal and executive. What are the opportunities for training and development that exist for them along that golden thread? And the golden thread is what we follow, and is the training and development that we provide teachers throughout their point of entry into the profession to all the way to senior executive in the profession. And we do that across Bedford, Milton Keynes, Stevenage, Luton, various parts of Hertfordshire, Bishop Stortford as far as that. So we've got a really large base across Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire, where we're providing that teacher training. An insight into myself, I, like Altaf, I worked at the college for nearly 13 years. So I spent a significant time at the college, having trained as a teacher after doing my degree. I did my degree in business. I went to Luton Sixth Form College as a student, so I'm kind of doing the whole cycle. I went to Chorley Boys, where I'm back at now, and that's where I'm based often for a lot of the teaching school activities that we do. Then I went to Luton Sixth Form College, spent 2 wonderful years there, had the opportunity to be taught by some brilliant teachers, many that are still in the college, but many that also inspired me to go on to teach, but also the profession I'm in now, which is help bring about more brilliant teachers to the profession. So I spent a number of years at the college where I've learned my trade, developed in that. I'd been fortunate enough to kind of develop within that role with lots of opportunities within the college from very early on. I was able to try something new almost every year I was at the college, which allowed me and kept me engaged, kept me developing, kept me moving forward in my career. And that allowed me to get to where I am now, which I couldn't have done without that experience, to go on and lead one of the largest teaching schools in the country. So we're really proud of where we are at the moment as a teaching school, but that wouldn't have been possible without the journey that I've had to go on. And that journey can have peaks and troughs, but it's been a great journey overall.
Okay, and I think that the only downside is that, Sufian, I think we know each other so well that we can't actually kind of pretend to do something that we haven't done, because we'll just pick each other up on it, won't we, really? But can I just pick up, there's something really interesting that you said, because I think I'm the same, is I've realised I surround myself with people who are better than me, if I try to. And I think what I try to do, and I'm working very well towards that, is I want to walk into my leadership team and be the dumbest person in that room when I walk in. And I think I'm relatively smart, but I want people to be better, be smarter, be quicker thinking than me. Is that how you be? Because I think there are some people who would be really threatened by that. But I think, for me, I've just surrounded myself with people who I learn from all the time. And you touched on it, didn't you, in terms of when you worked here? And I bet at the Chiltern Trust, you've got equally brilliant people.
100%. I think I've been fortunate that I've been allowed to develop and grow my own team. The skills my team have are the skills I don't have. And I think that's really important. My team can do things that I can't do. They understand things that I don't understand. They're able to explain things that I'm not able to explain. And with the vastness of what we offer, we need specialisms in areas. And I'm not a specialist in, which would be fair to say, I'm not a specialist in any of the areas. I'm more of a generalist. I'm more of a jack of all, rather a master of one. But I need masters in specific areas. But I also need people within my team that I always look at and think, are they good enough to take the teaching school to a better place than myself? Are they good enough to step in immediately into my shoes? And I think the word threat is interesting because some people do feel threatened by it. I feel it makes me up my game. I need to constantly remember the fact that I'm surrounded by people that are so ambitious, so talented, so much better than me, that I've got to always try and work hard to bring my A game. Otherwise, I'll look silly all the time. So, surrounding yourself with great people only brings the best out of you. You learn from other people. I think the one thing I've learned is never surround yourself with people that are exactly like you and similar to you, because the danger is when you start thinking alike. I always like the fact that I come out with an idea and I think it's an absolute genius idea. I'm impressed by it. I'm in the car driving to work thinking about sharing it, and then I share it and it falls like a lead balloon and they tell me every reason why it's a stupid idea. I love that because they think differently from me. They come from it at a different perspective. So having different minds, talented minds, is so important on a team.
I think that concept called groupthink, isn't it? Actually, then you all start agreeing with each other, and actually you need fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. And I think it's really interesting what you said about the A game, because surrounding myself with brilliant people is actually, I think you have to look at your ego, and I think sort of, and not let that be your issue. But I also know that if I'm having a bad day, there'll be someone to cover my backside until I get back to my A game. And I think that gives you a huge amount of confidence as well, that there's that team aspect there. Anyway, sort of, I'm just conscious of the time. If we're not careful, it'll be you and I talking to each other, and I think we're missing the point of the exercise. So I think, Amy, are you still there? I know we were going to open it up for questions, which is, I think, the key bit about this. I hope people haven't fallen asleep and actually gone home or something. So back to you, Amy, or just opening up for questions.
Thank you both for your insight and for your knowledge. I've had, the privilege of actually being taught by Sufian, but also I work alongside
Oh,
Altaf.
sorry about that. I'm joking.
So it's it's really good to have you both here. I am going to now open the platform for questions. If you do have a question, I know you can either raise your hand, but please do not put your camera on, or you can put them in the chat box. Whichever's easiest.
Oh, this is going to be that embarrassing bit where I think no one asks a question and then we just have to pad. Amy, I hope you've got a few kind of questions up your sleeve just in case.
No, I can see I have got a classroom typing, so you might get a handful of questions that come through to you. I can just see it like popping up. Okay. So firstly, this one's for Altaf. Where did you study your degree?
Okay, so he says, I think, kind of pumping out his chest. So I did a degree at Manchester, and then I did a postgrad degree at Birmingham as well. So it was initial first degree, and then I did a postgrad. And I think it goes back to what Sufian said. I think sort of my degree was a hybrid degree, and I think I did a bit of everything, which I think now, looking back, has probably helped me a lot. And then I did a postgraduate in cruise education and guidance at Birmingham. Thank you for your question.
The next one, okay, I was going to say, is for Sufian. Do you need a degree to be a teacher?
It depends. At various levels, you do. So if you want to be a teacher within a primary school with QTS, qualified teacher status, you do. If you want to be a teacher in secondary, you do. If you want to be a teacher in further education, it's not absolutely necessary. It's desirable. It's good to have, but it's not absolutely necessary with some vocational subjects for you to have that. But there are other roles. I always like to kind of say, it's a bit like when we think of medicine and we think of only being a doctor. Schools and colleges don't function on just teachers. The roles in education that allow you to progress and contribute to young people achieving are so vast. So academic improvement mentors, I know the college play an absolute vital role. Don't necessarily need a degree for a role of that nature, but being academically able, understanding how to bring the best out of others, learning mentors, learning coaches, teaching assistants, higher learning teaching assistants, And so it's kind of a variety of roles that don't need it, but teaching in its core within primary and secondary, you do need a degree.
Okay. So these two questions are for both of you. The first one is, if you didn't go into the education industry, what career do you think you would have chosen? And the second question is, what's the biggest challenges you face?
Okay, Sufian, do you want to go first, or John?
I'll go. It depends who you ask. If you ask my parents, it'd probably be a doctor or a pilot.
Oh, I was going to do that. Okay, you've stolen my thunder now.
I had a phase where I did want to be a doctor or a pilot. I would have taken either. At one stage, architect was on there. So it varied depending on what my dad's friends said was a really, really good career, and that kind of shaped what social pressure I was getting. Other than that, probably, if I'm honest, I'd probably be a salesman. If I wasn't in education right now, I'd be a sales director or a marketing director in a company somewhere, and I'd be very happy. I enjoy the concept of marketing. My degree was in that. My subject in business, what I taught, and the aspect on what I taught with real passion was marketing. The idea of being able to tell a story about a product, being able to take that product to market. And that could be a school, a teaching school, a college, whatever it is. But how do you build a story, a narrative around creating interest around it? So I would say sales or marketing would be an area I'd quite happily be in. But that said, I'd very happily also be working in the third sector, working in the voluntary sector. I would love, if I had my absolute dream job, I had no financial issues, I had no restrictions applied on me by my wife, I would be a director of a charity in Malawi. Malawi is where my heart is. It's where I do a lot of work. I've spent a lot of time there. I'd be working for a charitable organization called My Aisha Trust full-time in Malawi, and that's me in my dream job, in my dream place.
Okay, can I come with you as when you do that, please? I think for people who don't know myself and Sufian, I've had the pleasure of going with Sufian twice in Malawi, and I think it's a game changer. It gives you perspective and context, and it makes you really grateful for the things that we sometimes take for granted in this country. Once you got the floor, Sufian, I think there's another question about, someone's asked, why did you move away from marketing? I don't know if you can ever move away from marketing. There's always some, but that's a question. Otherwise, you've got the floor.
Yeah, I think Altaf's right in the fact that you don't, in reality, you don't actually move away from marketing. Sometimes I almost think I was selling ambition, I was selling inspiration, I was selling hope, I was selling the idea of people wanting to do better to improve their lives. That sale was happening in a classroom. If you said to me, am I hugely passionate about break even and profit and loss accounts and Boston matrix in business? No, I'm not. Some teachers wake up and they love their subject. I enjoy my subject. I love being around young people. I love the audience of young people, being able to inspire them. So I always did. If you ask me the real question, there's a teacher who I've spent a lot of time with. He also worked at Luton Sixth Form College. We went to nursery together from the age of 3. So we went infant school, junior school, Chorley boys together, Luton Sixth Form together. We went to uni together, came back and worked in Sixth Form together. His name is Mr. Khan, Abid Khan. And so we've spent our whole life together. We both dropped out of uni after our first year. And because Dubai had just started booming around that period. It was kind of 2005-ish, straight after college. We had left 2003, we left Luton Sixth Form College. We spent a year in University of Westminster, living out in London. And we loved living in London. And we thought we were going to go to Dubai. And we both thought we were quite the salesmen and marketers out there. and we both dropped out of University of Westminster, and we went home, and we both got told where to go by our parents, and we had to re-enroll a few days later back into university to carry on our second year of our degree, and the Dubai dream never actually happened at the time. So that's why my marketing dream didn't quite appear. And then by the time I finished, by the time I was finishing my degree, I was already mentoring in Luton Sixth Form College. So in my second and third year of uni, I was going into Luton Sixth Form College as a mentor with Miss Elif Ucha, who is the head of RE. So I was volunteering in her team. And so it was a natural progression that, having mentored and worked with young people in the college, I really enjoyed it. I then went on to train to teach, to go back to work in the college.
Okay. I don't know how to answer that in terms of what would I do. I think it's not too dissimilar to Sufian, really, folks. I think I went into the commercial world, as I said, and lots of money, etc. And I realised after 4 or 5 years, it wasn't really fulfilling me. It just wasn't just doing something for me. So that's why I wanted to go into an industry where it's about giving back. Now that sounds very cliche, but it goes back to what you said, something about charity work is, I think as I've got older, I've realised that, the more you give, the more you get. You may not get it immediately, but I've got so many friends who are earning loads of money, in IT, in marketing, but they hate their job. They hate the people that they work. They know that if they don't reach their targets, they could be out of a job the following day. I've got a friend of mine who's in IT, gets great commission. I'm sure, Sufian, you've got friends as well. And he's had 4 roles in the last 5 years. He moved house about 6 months ago, big mortgage, huge mortgage in London. And he found out a week ago that his boss doesn't like him and he's gone. He's got weak, he's going to be given some money and then he's looking for another job. So I think sort of for me, it was less about the money for me. It was about the influence. It was about the difference I could make. And that's why education, health, it'd be that kind of area, the charity sector is something, as you said, something where I'm giving back. Money was never a driver. Money is important, don't get me wrong. But for me, it's more about actually how I feel about the people I work with. Do I have, I've worked at the college for 17 years. I've never, ever had the Sunday night feeling. And I think Sufian and I have spoken about, I've worked in jobs where I couldn't wait until Friday and then Sunday afternoon would come and I'd have butterflies and anxiety because I didn't like the job, didn't like the people. And life's too short, folks. And initially, I know when I speak to young people, when I speak to my children, I want a job with loads of money. And I'm thinking, yeah, all right, fine. Yes, it's important. All money does is that it gives you more choices to make. You can still make the wrong choices. Honestly, it doesn't bring happiness. I think people say that. And I think that people listening are probably thinking I'm talking about rubbish. As you get older, you'll probably think there's a balance between the two. So in answer to the question, it would be an industry which is giving back, and that's why education was the right one for me. I think going back to Sufian's point, and this is a true story, I still remember when I was appointed principal, ringing my mum and, saying, oh, Mum, I've been appointed principal. And she said, well done, son. And she put the phone down. 5 minutes later, rang me back and said, I've just spoken to, your auntie. Everyone has a wise auntie, don't they? And she said, it's not too late to retrain as a doctor. That's genuinely a true story. And I think finally, my mum is getting over the disappointment of me not being a doctor. That would have been terrible on all sorts of levels. I'm not a scientific kind of person. I don't follow the rules, and I think that's probably why Sufian and I get on so well. And I think as a doctor, you need to follow the rules. You can't cut corners, etc. And I realised that just wasn't in me. I'm entrepreneurial. I like to bend the rules and like to do things differently. I was in 2 minds about joining the police, and then literally 3 months before I applied, I had so many people who I trusted who said, don't join the police, Altaf, because you don't like following orders, and after you're just going to get in trouble. And I've known Sufian for a long time. I think we're similar in that kind of ways. Yeah. So I think when you go back to the question, was the biggest challenge I faced or whatever, it's knowing myself, it's being honest with myself and knowing what my strengths are and working towards those strengths, and also identifying what my blind spots are and being honest that actually maybe I'm just not good enough in certain areas. And the other challenge I think as a chief exec is actually that it can be quite lonely. The buck stops with you, so you have to be quite confident about making decisions many a time which will be based on little or no information, but you still have to make a decision. And I think, Sufian, you're probably the case. We're paid to make decisions, but if you are waiting for all the information to be available before you make a decision as a leader, you will never make a decision. And there's probably a whole load of decisions that Sufian and I have made today which might be an absolute nightmare. We just don't know which ones are on. We hope, actually, that they won't be the case. So I think the biggest challenge for me is just listening to myself and being mindful and taking time out to understand that much as I love my job, and I love my job with a passion, and I know Sufian does as well, but before my job, it's my health, my family, my friendships and my relationships, and other things that are which make me be a better principal, in my opinion. And the final bit, and I'll hand over back to Sufian, is my family keep me real. They give me context, they really do. So when I walk through my doors, I'm not the principal. I'm just some bloke who's come in, and they keep my feet firmly on the ground. And Sufian, I suspect, I know your wife and I know your kids, I think you're not the director when you walk in. You are just a guy who is trying to do the best that he can do. And ultimately, that's what I say to my children. That's what I say to young people. Just be the best that you can be. And if you can genuinely, authentically look at the mirror and say, that was the very best that I could be, then I can't ask you to be better than your best, really. But never say, oh, I could have done better if I'd worked harder. That drives me mad when I hear young people say that to me. Focus on being the best. Don't be scared of failure. Failure gives you strength. And, people like Sufian and people like, leaders who I've seen, it's those people who work in the shadows. Real success happens when the sun isn't shining, when it's raining and you're freezing cold. Sufian's a runner. He's a good runner because he's been out in the cold and the rain when no one else and everyone else is in bed, quietly getting better and better all the time. So, the harder we work, the luckier we get. And I think that's a phrase, there's no excuse for not working hard. And I think if people are listening to this thinking there are loopholes, I'm sorry, guys, there aren't. I think work hard, be the best that you can be. I'm going to shut up there. Sufian, I'm sure you've got other bits that you want to add.
It's probably very similar to what you're saying. And it's hard to think of a challenge. I think the achievement that does come to mind, and I remember sharing this with Altaf recently. If someone said to me, what's the most significant achievement in my career, I'd say I've never taken a day off. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. There must be reasons, genuine reasons, where people do need days off. My point to illustrate is in 17 years now in the career, I've never got up thinking, I'm not going to go in today. And there's days where you're feeling groggy, you're not feeling great, you do want to take time off, you do want to rest. So much other stuff is going on. There's family pulls of this is happening at home and you need to go do this, you need to do that. And there's 101 reasons. And the reason I share that is because it links with Altaf's point about hard work. I do a lot of work around equality and diversity nationally. And we know that there's huge challenges around young people from diverse backgrounds facing prejudice when they go into employment. We actually know that young people generally at the moment getting into the employment market face challenges. Young people from certain demographics, poorer communities, face certain challenges. But the one thing and one advice I would give, and I have always given, is just the hard work. People can dispute your intelligence and it's subjective. People can have an opinion on how bright you are. opinion on how good your strategy is, an opinion on the way you've done things. One thing people can't really have an opinion on is the idea of the fact that you put the solid graft in. You're kind of first in, last out. I liked the fact with all of the teams that I managed that went through sixth form, one of the things that people probably didn't get a kick out of, but I used to get a real kick out of the fact that my team was the last to leave the building, and we would leave at 6 o'clock and nobody would leave earlier, because we wanted to spend the day working as hard as possible to get the most impact. And so it's that hard work is a challenge. To give yourself that motivation every day, you will have peaks and you'll have troughs. It'll go up and down. And sometimes you've got to challenge yourself. You've got to really fight yourself and say, no, through the dark days, through the hard days, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to stick with what I know, and that's hard work. Hard work will always pay off. Sooner or later, it will pay off eventually.
And the people listening are probably thinking, can you imagine having Sufian and Altaf as a dad? Really, can you imagine my kids? I can imagine as yours get older, the speeches we will be giving them. So I think I've got 3 older kids. I've got a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old and a 16-year-old. And I'll be honest, this is what I tell them. And I'm not saying this is what I'm telling you, but I say to them, guys, look, we come from a certain background. Okay, so guess what? You're going to have to work harder. I'm sorry. I wish I could say whatever. Stop complaining and moaning about it. It is what it is. And I know that sounds controversial, but I've said that to my children. I said, what I don't want is for you to focus on what you can't do, complain about the system, complain about thousands of years worth of racism, etc. Yes, do your little bit. But what I don't want them to do, and I'm sure Sufian and Asma, you are the same, I want my kids to be successful. Of course I want them to be. But what's most important for me, for my children, is they need to have integrity. They need to be kind. They need to be generous. They need to be compassionate. And then everything else is a bonus. Because without integrity, you're nothing, in my opinion, really. If you say you're going to work hard, work hard. But be the best that you can be. And the difference between those people who succeed and the people who don't is the successful people have that perfect balance between thought and action. And I bet lots of people who talk the talk. I will work harder. Today I will do this. Tomorrow. The people who are really successful, who move from today to right now, at least. So that it's no longer kind of one day I will work harder. It's day one. Day one, today, I am going to start working. And for those people who are watching or listening to this, you've got about 8 weeks, I think, until your GCSEs or as students have got 8 weeks before their A-levels, etc. And the difference between the high achieving students are the ones who are now going to manage their distractions, make sacrifices, put the hours in, because ironically, so if you remember when we used to sit exams, that was the time when the sun would come out and the weather would be amazing. You'd be sitting in your room or in the library. That's the difference between success and failure, is those fine margins. And the final bit is going back to what we said right at the beginning. You either fly with eagles or you fly with pigeons. And if you've got people in your social circle who are happy for you to dumb yourself down, if they are not pushing you to be the best that you can be, if you are capable of actually getting a 7 and you are coasting at a 5 and your social circle is saying, yeah, that's fine, allow it, that's not your friend, really. My job with Sufian and vice versa, we push each other because we are ambitious for each other's success, and that's what we care about. Okay, Amy, if you're not careful, there's a danger we're just going to be carrying on talking here. So is there anything else that you want to share, Amy? Or any other questions?
I think the last thing before we do finish up is obviously we run still run Young Steps, and we work with a lot of young people 11 to 19, but our 16 to 19 year olds, the question I have is that you've both mentioned how your parents wanted you to go into different careers, and a lot of our young people are in that situation now where they want to follow one route but their parents want them to go another way. So my question is, what advice would you give them to kind of deal with that? Because obviously they're in that predicament where they want to follow their heart and do what they want to do and make themselves happy, but at the same time they don't want to upset their parents. And I think it'd be good for the young people to hear what your advice would be to kind of manage that as such.
Okay, that's a really easy question. So, Sufian, I'll let you take that one first, and then I will chip in.
So, I think one thing, as you appreciate over time, I probably felt exactly the same as they do now. Experience, there's some things that you can't buy, you can't download off Google, and you can't get off your friends. And the one thing that you can't get from your peer group, from Google, from others around you, is wisdom. Wisdom comes with experience, it comes with age. And sometimes one of the things that I'm mindful, if I could teach my younger self one thing, it would be appreciating the wisdom of those that are older than me, the elders around me, around what they advised me on. I could not understand why my mum and dad wanted me to do a degree. I did not want to do a degree. I was adamant I didn't want to do a degree. I performed reasonably well at school. I had a good time at college. I wanted to go into work. In hindsight, when I look back, my decision, which wasn't my decision, it was my parents' encouragement to do a degree, was the best thing I did. Because the routes I've taken and what I wanted to do, I couldn't have accessed and couldn't have done without that degree. The degree was a gateway for me. And it was a gateway for me at a stage in my life I don't think I was ready to make life decisions that would impact my whole life. So I felt at the end of Luton Sixth Form College, I was 18 years old. I felt I knew exactly what I needed and nobody needed to tell me what I need to do in my life. And I've decided I don't want to do a degree. And I feel like the world's pressure on me because my mum said she wants a degree and she is not negotiating on that. Having done my degree, I think to myself, that was the best piece of advice that my parents could have ever given me. Because it gave me the encouragement to challenge myself, to do something that I didn't want to do. And when I look back at it, why didn't I want to do a degree? And there's options now that are much better than they were before around apprenticeship routes and so on. I didn't want to do a degree because I didn't want to work hard. And that's when I look back and dig deep and say, what was it that was preventing me from wanting to do a degree? I worked hard and A-levels are hard. It's a tougher gig doing your level 3 BTECs and A-levels than probably is in a degree. So by the end of it, I was kind of burnt out and I was thinking maybe I don't think I'm capable of doing this for another 3 years. And unlike previous schooling, which was compulsory, I had a choice around university, and therefore I was exercising my choice based on my appetite to want to work and challenge and push myself. And it wasn't me thinking creatively and ambitiously about the future. So in hindsight, I think for me, it was about the fact that I listened to the advice and I did what they asked me to do. At the end of my degree, you're old enough when you're 21 years old, when you're graduating, what you'll find is even your parents will realize you're old enough to make your own decisions. And by that stage, I chose to become a teacher and I was supported by my parents. But they didn't encourage me to become one. They didn't discourage me from being one. If that's what I wanted to be, they got me through probably the most difficult years around decision making for me, and I'm thankful for that.
Okay, yeah, not much for me to add really. I think you specifically asked after any particular tips or techniques. I think firstly it's always to find common ground. I think some of the feedback I give to young people is that they understandably they close down and then the communication stops. And I think trust only comes through conversation. And I think I know it's tempting to actually stop talking to parents and let them carry on doing. That will catch you out eventually. And I think life is all about compromise. And I think find the common ground. One thing you will realize is your parents are highly ambitious for you. They want you to be the best that you can be. They want you to be successful. And then slowly talk them through, educate them gently because, and if you like what I know, when my parents were stuck on me being a doctor, I brought my sister into the mix because my sister was older. They listened to my sister. I used the kind of communication channels in my family. in my family, we have a very simple deal. We talk things out all the time, but that's unusual because I think my wider family, it's all pockets and there's no conversation. The deal that I've had with my kids is I think we're honest. We have family conferences and we talk things out. And by the end of a conversation, there's always a compromise. There's always a solution which both parties are happy with. But as soon as the communication stops, that's when you're going to have some trouble. And if you don't know how to communicate with your parents, and I know that's a tough gig, bring in an uncle that you get on with and maybe talk to them, or maybe bring in a teacher. When we're interviewing at the moment, and I'm over the moon when parents come for interviews. Sufian used to do interviews, and I couldn't be happy if the parent is there listening to what I'm talking about, because there are many of our young people who turned up, yesterday, and they want to do medicine. And then I have to be the horrible person saying, oh God, I'm looking at your grades and I'm not quite sure, and that might be the first time they've heard that, and the parent needs to understand my reasonings for why that might be a tough gig. So I think the advice would be is that the conversation, communication, keep those channels open as much as you can between your parents and each other and the wider family as well. Does that answer your question, Amy? I know there's a hand up as well from somebody in the audience, but back to you.
It does answer my question, and I appreciate both of your answers, and I will share them with our students because I think it would be really helpful. Sahel does have a question, so I will let him ask a question, and then I think I will do a wrap up because I know that I'm taking a lot of your guys' time.
Sufian, a lot of people say to me that you have impacted lives, many lives. Now, looking at you both have substantial amount of years in teaching. Sufian, have you got any examples of where you impacted someone's life that it really stood out for you? I know you're going to have many examples, but is there one that really stands out for you?
Amy Clark. And I genuinely mean that. Amy, I had the good pleasure of teaching Amy for 3 years. And I was able to work with Amy and support Amy in getting a job during her time at college, where I introduced her to Barton Press, because Amy did all of, I probably shouldn't be owning up to this in front of Altaf, who was my boss at the time, but Amy did all of my administration for me. So she would always organize all of my files.
We knew that anyway, mate. We already knew that.
All of my marking would be right. All of the stationery, everything would be lined up for me perfectly. So she was brilliant at doing that. And she got a job straight after college. And she went through Amy's, I'm sure Amy won't mind, but Amy's never had an easy gig in life. She's faced some challenges, but she overcame them through staying in touch, through persevering, through her studying, through her degree, through her work. But again, a prime example of someone that I would say, I think she's impacted me more than I've impacted her, if I'm being honest. I've learned more from Amy than I've taught Amy. But it's that impact. Impact is mutual. I don't think impact is a one-way thing. You always walk away with huge benefits from that. And that's why, for me, seeing Amy here today, seeing Amy flourish in her career, in the work that she's doing with Community Interest Luton, I think that speaks volumes. And that's when you really, as a teacher, you don't really see the impact at the time. You see results at the time, and you get thank you every now and then for results. True impact is when you see them 15 years later, 10 years later, and they're doing incredibly well. That's when you really feel that moment of pride. I've been into doctor's surgery, and I'm now at the age where I'll meet kids who were at Luton Sixth Form College when I was there, engaging with various programs I would be in charge of, and now they're my doctor. That's interesting, but that's when you realize the impact of not me, the impact of the college, the whole system, in how it's really allowed young people to flourish.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. No, I do appreciate everything that yourself and the college did for me while I was studying. It was, as you say, it wasn't easy, but I came out with my distinction stars with much hard work, and obviously I, went off to uni. And to be fair, I probably personally wouldn't have gone to uni without being in college. I was just gonna get my job and carry on, but thankfully I managed to keep both, do uni and work.
Amy, can I think it's great to hear that, but I think it's not just the college, it's secondary schools, primary schools, parents, uncles and aunties, friends, it's and that's I've gone on kind of Twitter and actually said how much I love Luton, and people have been disagreeing with them, which is actually makes me chuckle. It's just an opinion, but that's why I love Luton. I don't have many regrets, but one regret I have is that I wasn't born in Luton, but I've chosen to work in Luton for 17 years because the first day I walked through the doors of this college, there was something magical. Honestly, I know it sounds really weird to say it, and so it's genuinely an ambitious town with lots of challenges, and yet we just overcome those challenges over and over again. And then people like you, Amy, personify those challenges. But what I'm blessed about is I think there are thousands of Amys that have gone through our doors and will go through our doors, and that's what we're really proud of.
Thank you both. It's true. I agree. Luton is it's a great community to be in, to work in, to grow up in, and to be fair, I couldn't see myself anywhere else. I don't think I've got any more questions. No one's got their hands up. There's nothing in the chat. So I just want to say a massive thank you to you both for your time, your knowledge, your expertise. I know that I have gone over your time, so I apologise. I know you're both very busy. But yeah, just a massive thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And guys, if you're listening, good luck with the exams. You've got this. You really have. So we couldn't be prouder of you. Just be the best that you can be. Take care.